They expected screams. That's how the broadcast package had been advertised across the Dominion's aristocratic courts. The fall of Earth. A civilized species meets its end. The first image beamed across 1,000 systems was not fire. It was a little girl walking through smoke. But that comes later. First, understand this. The Varkashi Dominion did not conquer with fleets alone. They conquered with mythology. Where other empires used cold metal and sterile drones, the Dominion unleashed dragons. Not metaphors. Not folklore. Living war beasts the size of cities. Genetically sculpted apex predators wrapped in scale and plasma. Their wings churned the sky into hurricanes. Their breath liquefied mountains. Their roars scrambled neural signals in prey species, triggering evolutionary panic. They were biological terror weapons. And Earth was supposed to be an easy harvest. The first contact message arrived like a king clearing his throat. Primitive mammalian civilization, the translated voice purred, smooth as oil over bone. You now exist under the protection of the Varkashi Dominion. Surrender planetary authority and submit your biosphere for integration. Integration. A polite word for asset stripping. Earth's diplomats tried courtesy. They tried legal frameworks. They tried the old language of treaties and mutual benefit. The Dominion replied with fire. The first dragon descended over New Jakarta. It entered atmosphere without slowing. Orbital defense cannons struck its scales, kinetic slugs that would punch through battleship armor, only to ricochet in sprays of molten sparks. The creature inhaled, chest glowing from within like a dying star. Then it exhaled. The city became memory. Across Earth, older men watched the footage with the quiet, bitter recognition of veterans. Different century. Same arrogance. Within hours, 3 outer colonies were ash. Human fleets attempted interception. Entire squadrons vanished beneath claws that tore frigates in half like soda cans. Dominion commentators narrated in detached amusement. Observe the panic mobilization. Adorable. Their military doctrine relies heavily on massed projectile weaponry. Inefficient. In the war room beneath what used to be Geneva, General Mateo Ruiz stared at the live feed of a dragon circling over the Pacific. Adorable, he muttered. That's new. Ruiz was 62. Desert wars in his 20s. Urban insurgencies in his 30s. Cyber conflicts in his 40s. He'd buried more friends than he cared to count. He did not believe in unbeatable enemies. He believed in enemies who hadn't been studied long enough. Get me biological analysis on those things, he snapped. Full spectrum scans. I want to know what makes them breathe fire and what makes them choke. Humanity did not collapse. It compartmentalized. Evacuation protocols activated with ruthless efficiency. Civilian populations were moved underground into maglev-linked bunker networks originally designed for nuclear war. Drone swarms blackened the skies, forcing dragons to expend energy swatting mechanical gnats. Railgun platforms recalibrated mid-battle. Hypersonic munitions shifted from high-explosive to cryogenic penetrators. The first breakthrough happened by accident. A dragon over Sao Paulo inhaled to unleash its atmospheric incineration burst. 3 naval railguns, firing in desperate synchronization, drove supercooled tungsten rods straight into its open throat. The creature's internal plasma glands flash froze. For one terrible second it looked confused. Then it detonated from the inside. The shockwave shattered windows across 2 continents. The Dominion stopped laughing. Interesting, one aristocrat murmured during the live feed. They learn. Yes, another replied coolly. Which is why escalation exists. They sent the Patriarch. If the earlier dragons were weapons, the Patriarch was theology. It eclipsed sunlight as it emerged from hyperspace. Its wingspan rivaled small nations. Scales layered like overlapping starship hulls. Eyes burning with ancient, engineered malice. This was the beast that had cracked the moons of Karsheth, the creature that had devoured an entire fleet of the hegemony while still in vacuum. It did not dive immediately. It circled Earth first, slowly, letting the planet see it. On the surface, people stopped mid-evacuation to stare upward at the silhouette blotting out the sun. Fear is a physical thing when it gets that big. The Patriarch descended over what remained of Houston. Military command threw everything at it. Orbital kinetic strikes, nuclear detonations, experimental plasma lances never meant to fire inside atmosphere. The blasts rolled across its body like summer rain. It landed. The impact registered as a 7.9 on global seismograph. Its roar flattened buildings. Ruiz watched the tactical overlay bleed red. All units fall back to perimeter Gamma, he ordered calmly. Do not cluster. It wants mass casualties. A colonel beside him whispered, Sir, we don't have anything that can kill that. Ruiz didn't look away from the screen. Everything can be killed, he said. We just haven't insulted it properly yet. The Patriarch advanced through the ruins, each step turning asphalt into molten glass. Tanks fired until their barrels glowed. Fighter jets screamed past its head, launching bunker-buster payloads that detonated against its skull. The beast barely blinked. Then it inhaled. And this time, no railgun round found its throat. White plasma rolled outward in a tidal wave, vaporizing an entire armored division. Across the galaxy, Dominion nobles reclined in bio-silk chambers, satisfied. This concludes resistance, one declared. But humans are stubborn in ways that statistics fail to model. Guerrilla units adapted within hours. Infantry squads used grappling harpoons to anchor themselves to buildings, avoiding being swept away by thermal shockwave. Engineers deployed atmospheric particulate bombs that reduced oxygen density locally, weakening flame output. They were not winning. But they were not dying quietly either. And somewhere beneath the chaos, in a half-collapsed evacuation corridor outside the city perimeter, an 8-year-old girl slipped past distracted soldiers. Her name was Emily Carter. Her father had been a Marine combat engineer. He died 2 weeks earlier when a dragon crushed his mech like a soda can, live on broadcast. Emily had watched the replay. She had not cried then. She cried now as she walked through smoke toward the largest monster in existence. Behind reinforced glass in orbit, Dominion commentators noticed the anomaly. A juvenile specimen has exited cover, one observed with mild curiosity. Observe mammalian grief behavior. On Earth, a sniper team spotted her through thermal scope. Command, we've got a civilian moving toward the target. Repeat, a child is in the open. Ruiz closed his eyes briefly. Can you extract? Negative. The heat bloom is too intense. And if we fire, we risk drawing its attention directly to her. The Patriarch lowered its head slightly, noticing movement beneath it. Emily kept walking. Small boots crunching on ash. The ground trembled with each of the dragon's breaths. She stopped 10 meters from a claw larger than her house. For the first time since the invasion began, the Patriarch hesitated. Not out of mercy. Out of confusion. Prey did not approach. Prey ran. It lowered its head further. Molten eyes narrowing until they filled Emily's entire world. Across secure channels, scientists whispered in frantic disbelief. Is she in shock? No, her gait is steady. Why isn't it firing? Emily tilted her head. You're the one who killed my daddy, she said, voice thin but clear, picked up by Dominion translation matrices and broadcast to the galaxy. The Patriarch's chest began to glow. In orbit, aristocrats leaned forward. Yes, one murmured. Witness extinction. Emily stepped closer. You're ugly, she added, with the blunt honesty only children possess. Somewhere in a bunker, a hardened sergeant let out a strangled laugh that sounded dangerously close to hysteria. The Patriarch opened its jaws. The internal plasma build intensified. And then, Emily stood on her toes and reached up. The Patriarch's jaws opened wide enough to swallow a tank column whole. Heat rolled outward in shimmering waves. Concrete bubbled. Steel warped. The air itself screamed. In orbit, Dominion nobles leaned forward in their grave thrones, anticipation curling through their frilled necks. Primitive defiance concludes, one said softly. On Earth, General Ruiz gripped the edge of the tactical table until his knuckles whitened. Don't you dare, he whispered, not to the dragon. To fate. Emily Carter rose on her toes. And instead of screaming, she kissed the dragon's nose. Not a dramatic, cinematic gesture. A small, awkward, smudged little peck from a child who had lost everything and decided fear was boring. The galaxy went silent. The patriarch froze. Its inner furnace flickered. The plasma in its throat guttered like a candle in sudden wind. Emily pressed her tiny palm against a scale larger than a car door. You don't gotta be mean, she said. In the Dominion flagship Radiant Supremacy, confusion rippled through the aristocracy. Why has it not incinerated the specimen? One demanded. Neurobiologist Zarin of House Varkesh flicked his frills in irritation. Stress delay response. Aesthetic curiosity. The beast will correct itself. But it didn't. Because something was happening that the Dominion had engineered out of existence generations ago. Deep within the Patriarch's vast brain, dormant neural clusters flickered awake. Dragons had not always been weapons. Before the Dominion, they had been pack predators, intelligent, hierarchical, social. They bonded. They guarded territory not for conquest, but for kin. The Dominion had rewritten that. They amplified aggression, suppressed empathy, installed chemical obedience triggers and a remote kill switch woven into their genome. They had carved away anything inconvenient, anything soft, anything human. But humanity had been studying captured tissue samples for weeks. When the first dragon corpse fell over Sao Paulo, special operations teams risked radiation and molten debris to extract brain matter. Scientists noticed something fascinating. The empathy centers weren't gone. They were shackled. And humans have a long, messy history with breaking chains. 3 days before the Patriarch arrived, Earth's Defense Council authorized Project Hestia. They didn't design a plague. They designed a key. A viral vector, aerosolized and seeded into the upper atmosphere via weather modification satellite. It targeted specific Dominion genetic suppressors, unlocking neural pathways the aristocrats believed permanently silenced. It was subtle, slow, and it required proximity. The Patriarch had just inhaled a lungful of it. Back in Houston's ruins, Emily looked up at the monster that had erased her father. You're not supposed to hurt people, she whispered. The Patriarch's pupils dilated. Its massive head lowered another inch. Across sniper scopes, soldiers blinked in disbelief. Command, it's kneeling. Ruiz exhaled slowly. No, he said. It's listening. In orbit, panic began to fracture aristocratic composure. Deploy override pheromones, Zarin snapped. Dominion handlers activated the obedience frequency, an encoded biochemical pulse transmitted from orbit designed to reinforce rage and suppress deviation. The Patriarch convulsed. Emily stumbled but didn't fall. The beast's claws gouged trenches in the earth as internal commands battled awakening instincts. It could hear them, the handlers, the chemical leash tightening. Could also feel something else. A small hand, warm, unafraid. The Dominion underestimated one thing about humanity. We domesticated wolves. Not by force. By proximity. By feeding them. By letting them sleep near the fire. It took thousands of years. The Dominion had just triggered it in seconds. The Patriarch released a low rumble, not a roar. A confused, questioning sound. Emily tilted her head. It's okay, she said softly. You don't have to listen to them. In the Radiant Supremacy, alarms flared. Neural telemetry from the Patriarch spiked unpredictably. Empathic centers increasing activity, an analyst whispered. That is impossible, Zarin hissed. We excised those clusters. No, Exalted One, the analyst replied shakily. You suppressed them. On Earth, the Patriarch slowly, deliberately, folded its front legs. It brought its colossal head down until its snout rested against cracked pavement. Submission posture. The broadcast feed exploded across the galaxy. Alien empires that had once paid tribute to the Dominions stared in stunned silence. A human child stood before the deadliest war beast ever bred. And it bowed. General Ruiz leaned into the camera drone hovering beside him. "You wanted a spectacle?" he muttered. "Here's your spectacle." The Dominion aristocracy erupted in outrage. "Activate the failsafe," one shrieked. Zarin hesitated only a fraction of a second before slamming his talon against a crystalline interface. Deep within every dragon genome lay the Dominion's ultimate insurance policy. If obedience faltered, terminate the asset. The kill switch signal pulsed outward from the flagship, quantum entangled and inescapable. On Earth, the Patriarch screamed. Not in rage. In agony. Its body spasmed. Blood like molten gold spilled between scales. Neural tissue began catastrophic cascade failure. Emily's eyes widened. "No!" she cried, wrapping her arms around the dragon's snout as if she could physically hold it together. Across human command channels, Project Hestia's lead geneticist slammed her fist on her console. "They triggered it," she snarled. "Bastards!" Ruiz's voice cut through the chaos. "Tell me you planned for that." The scientist's lips curled in something feral. "We planned for cruelty. Because humans, for all their flaws, are very good at anticipating betrayal. When they designed the viral key, they embedded something else. A counter-sequence. Dormant. Waiting specifically for the Dominion's kill frequency. The moment the failsafe activated, the virus responded. Instead of allowing neural liquefaction, it rewrote the cascade. In the Patriarch's brain, the destructive signal inverted. Suppression genes didn't just unlock. They burned out. Permanently. The obedience leash snapped. The Patriarch's convulsions slowed. Its breathing stabilized. And then its eyes changed. The molten, imperial glare dimmed into something sharper. Aware. It lifted its head slowly, carefully, so as not to dislodge the tiny human clinging to its snout. In orbit, telemetry flatlined in the worst possible way. "No obedience response," the analyst whispered. "No termination cascade," another added. Zarin felt something unfamiliar crawl into his thoughts. Fear. On Earth, the Patriarch rose to its full height. It turned its gaze upward. Toward the Dominion fleet. Emily wiped tears from her cheeks. "You mad at them?" she asked. The dragon's wings unfurled, spanning miles of sky. Its roar this time was different. Not the roar of a weapon. Not the roar of a slave. The roar of something that had just remembered it was free. General Ruiz allowed himself a tight smile. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said into open broadcast channels, "we just adopted a dragon." In the radiant supremacy, Zarin stumbled back from the command interface as the Patriarch crouched. "That is impossible," he whispered. On the ruined streets of Houston, Emily stepped back as Ash, because that's what she would later name him, launched skyward. The shockwave shattered what little glass remained. On Earth, he didn't climb gently. He accelerated like a ballistic missile. And the Dominion fleet suddenly realized the worst tactical error in galactic history. They had brought a monster to a planet that specializes in turning monsters into family. And now, their monster was coming home angry. The Dominion had engineered the Patriarch to crack moons. They had not engineered him to forgive. When Ash punched through the cloud layer, the sky tore open behind him in a spiral of vapor and sonic shockwaves. Human fighter squadrons scattered instinctively, then regrouped, because nothing in any flight manual covered friendly city-sized dragon entering low orbit. General Ruiz's voice cut through the chaos. "All squadrons, vector behind the big guy. If he's going up, we're not letting him go alone." In orbit, the Dominion fleet shifted formations with cold precision. Bioships rotated, presenting armored ventral plating. Carrier beasts opened their ribbed hulls, preparing to disgorge lesser dragons like living missiles. On the bridge of the radiant supremacy, Zarin regained his composure. It is one beast, he hissed. One malfunctioning asset. Focus plasma lances. Cripple wings. Prepare reclamation pods. But telemetry told a different story. Every dragon in orbit had received the kill switch pulse. Every dragon had felt something snap. Ash hit the first warship like a meteor. Claws punched through organic hull tissue. Vacuum roared inward as atmosphere vented in a crimson mist. The ship's spinal cannon fired point-blank into his chest, detonating in a miniature sunburst. Ash did not retreat. He bit down. The flagship's command deck shook violently as external feeds filled with teeth the size of skyscrapers tearing into a sister vessel. Deploy pheromone override. Zarin screamed. Dominion handlers flooded space with obedience signals. Chemical commands broadcast via microdispersal pod. Several lesser dragons faltered mid-flight. Then they hesitated. One turned its head. Another folded its wings instead of diving toward Earth. On human channels, Project Hestia's lead geneticist stared at cascading data. It's spreading, she whispered. The viral counter-sequence hadn't just saved Ash. It had propagated through shared genetic markers. Dragon to dragon. Signal to signal. The Dominion's kill command had become a liberation pulse. Ruiz barked into the comm, all units, target Dominion control ship. The skinny ones with the glowing spines. Those are their leash holders. Human destroyers surged forward. Railguns thundered. Hypersonic slugs punched into the elongated handler vessels, rupturing pheromone reservoirs. Several exploded in silent blossoms of debris. In orbit above Earth, a second dragon turned fully against its assigned vector. It slammed into a Dominion cruiser, claws ripping open the hull from within as if something inside had decided it preferred freedom to servitude. Panic spread across aristocratic channels. "This is contagion," one noble shrieked. "They are corrupting sacred war stock." Zarin's voice dropped to a whisper. "No. They are reminding them." Ash tore free from the shattered warship and wheeled in vacuum, vast wings beating against nothing, propelled by internal gravitic organs the Dominion had engineered for space combat. Below him, Earth rotated, scarred, burning, defiant. Above him, the fleet that had enslaved his species regrouped for extermination. They activated the contingency. If the dragons could not be controlled, destroy the planet. Spinal annihilation cannons began charging across multiple capital ships. Blue-white energy gathered along their lengths, enough to strip Earth's atmosphere in a synchronized barrage. On the surface, early warning systems howled. Ruiz looked at the tactical overlay and felt something cold settle in his gut. "They're going to glass us," a colonel whispered. Ruiz nodded once. "Then we hit them before they finish charging. That fleet outmasses us 10-1. Ruiz allowed himself a humorless smile. "We don't need to outmass them. We just need to outlast their stupidity." In a bunker outside Denver, Emily watched the sky through reinforced glass. Ash was a moving star now, tearing through shapes that burned and broke around him. "Don't let them hurt him," she whispered. As if in answer, Ash banked hard and dove, not at another warship, but straight toward the radiant supremacy. Zarin's frills flared in alarm. "All batteries concentrate fire." Lances of coherent plasma slashed across space, carving molten trenches into Ash's scales. Chunks of armorized tissue sheared away, drifting as incandescent debris. He did not slow. Human fighters slipped into his wake, using his massive body as moving cover. They launched coordinated salvos into the flagship's weapon arrays. Railgun impacts cracked shielding node. One by one, annihilation cannons flickered. The radiant supremacy fired. A beam of concentrated stellar fury lanced downward toward Earth. For one horrifying second, it looked unstoppable. Then Ash intercepted it. He twisted mid-flight, spreading his wings wide. The beam struck his chest. Space lit up like dawn. On Earth, every sensor spiked into overload. In the flagship's bridge, Zarin allowed himself a thin smile. Even liberated beasts burn. But when the light faded, Ash was still there. charred, bleeding molten gold. Alive. The Dominion had engineered dragons to survive stellar coroni during long-range deployments. They had never imagined one would use that durability to shield prey. Ash opened his jaws and unleashed his own furnace breath directly into the flagship's primary shield array. Human bombers followed the stream of plasma like cavalry behind artillery. They punched through the weakened barrier. Explosions rippled across the Radiant Supremacy's dorsal spine. Inside, aristocrats were thrown from their perches as gravity fluctuated. Zarin staggered, staring at structural integrity plummeting. "This cannot be," he whispered. "They are prey." On Earth, Ruiz leaned close to the open broadcast feed, knowing the entire galaxy was watching. "You built your empire on fear," he said quietly. "You never understood something." Behind him, footage showed dragons turning en masse against their handlers. "We don't just fight monsters," Ruiz continued. "We fix them." The crushing twist came not from a weapon, but from a choice. As the Radiant Supremacy began to break apart, Dominion escape pods launched in frantic waves. Ash had a clear path to finish it. One more strike would detonate the reactor core, wiping out thousands of aristocrats in a single incandescent bloom. He hesitated. Human command saw it in real time. "Why is he pulling back?" a major demanded. Because somewhere beneath engineered rage, beneath centuries of forced obedience. Ash remembered the small human who had pressed her forehead to his scales and told him he didn't have to be mean. Instead of obliterating the flagship, Ash tore through its weapon systems, crippling propulsion and leaving the vessel dead in space. Alive. A message. Human forces swarmed the disabled ship. Boarding pods latched on. Marines in vacuum armor cut their way into corridors that had once echoed with condescension. The Dominion had come expecting extinction theater. They found themselves prisoners. As the last annihilation cannon fizzled into darkness, silence settled over orbit. Wreckage drifted. Freed dragons circled uncertainly, no longer receiving orders, no longer feeling the chemical leash. On Earth, air raid sirens slowly wound down. Ruiz exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. "Status: Dominion fleet combat ineffective," an officer replied. "Multiple capital ships disabled. Remaining assets retreating." "And the Patriarch?" The screen shifted to Ash hovering above the planet, wings beating slow and steady despite grievous wounds. "He's holding position," the officer said softly. "Like he's guarding." In a bunker in Denver, Emily pressed her hand against the glass. "Good job," she whispered to the sky. Up in orbit, Ash turned his vast head slightly toward Earth. As if he heard her. The Dominion had underestimated humanity's capacity for violence. That had been their first mistake. Their second was underestimating humanity's capacity for mercy. And mercy, when weaponized correctly, is far more destabilizing than fear. The dust settled slowly. Houston was a ruin, Houston was alive, and Houston, somehow, had become a staging ground for humanity's most audacious counterattack in history. Ash hovered above the city, wings spanning miles, his molten eyes scanning the horizon. Below, human engineers began the delicate work of salvaging Dominion wreckage, fusing technology to biology in ways that would have made Imperial scientists either furious or weep with envy. Military pilots laughed, unburdened by fear, their calm chatter thick with profanity and pride. General Ruiz watched the live feeds from the command bunker, a cigar smoldering in his fingers. The galaxy had expected a polite extinction, a human species neatly swept into history. What they got was chaos engineered to perfection. "Status report," he barked. "Dominion fleet retreating," one officer said, rubbing sweat from his brow. "Dragons fully liberated. Several vessels under human boarding control. Casualties, minimal for us, catastrophic for them." Ruiz smirked. "I love it when a plan comes together. But what about Ash?" The feed switched to Emily, standing small against the sheer bulk of the Patriarch. The little girl waved, and Ash lowered his massive head until it was level with her. She clambered onto his scales, brushing soot from his snout. "He's happy?" an intern asked quietly. Ruiz laughed, a sound like dry gravel. "Kid taught the deadliest monster in the galaxy manners. I'd call that happy in a very human way." Across the stars, Dominion aristocrats panicked. Their centuries of carefully cultivated dominance had been undone not by fleets or firepower, but by one human child and a viral vector tailored with foresight and spite. Every kill switch they had thought secure had become a liberation pulse. Their dragons had remembered their true instincts, and now those instincts hunted their masters. The radiant supremacy, once the pride of the Dominion, was dead in space, crippled but intact. Boarding parties reported that surviving aristocrats begged for mercy from humans they had considered vermin. They offered treaties, pledges of fealty, and scientific knowledge, but it was all too late. "Let them talk," Ruiz muttered, leaning back. "We're not signing anything. We're teaching them." Below him, Earth's engineers worked tirelessly. They had begun integrating dragon biomatter with human tech, creating symbiotic weapons and craft, hybrid cavalry that no Dominion strategist could have predicted. Planetary shields were reinforced, cities rebuilt with dual-use infrastructure capable of housing both humans and dragons. Humanity was not just surviving, it was evolving. Emily giggled, dangling her small legs over Ash's snout. "You didn't eat them, did you?" she asked. Ash rumbled softly, a sound that was half purr, half growl. He had choices now, and for the first time, he chose restraint. Humans had shown him a different path, one that the Dominion could never calculate. In the galactic broadcast, across millions of light-years, the message was clear. The humans of Earth were not prey. They were not negotiable. They were clever, brutal, and utterly unpredictable. The aristocrats whispered among themselves. What is this species?" "They domesticate monsters," one said, voice shaking. "They do not kill them. They bond with them. And when betrayed, they teach them to hate you instead." Across ruined cities and open skies, the symphony of human ingenuity and dragon power played. Fighters soared on wings bigger than cities. Infantry units rode scale-back titans into reclaimed orbit platforms. Every Dominion ship that remained was a potential throne for a new dragon commander loyal to humanity, not empire. Ruiz lit another cigar. "They wanted to conquer us," he said. "They forgot that fear isn't universal, and neither is obedience." Emily nestled against Ash, small and fearless, and whispered something unintelligible to the world's deadliest weapon. And in that moment the patriarch, once a terror, now a sentinel, stayed his claws. Somewhere in a shattered council chamber of the Dominion, an aristocrat stared at the galactic feeds, clutching at his ceremonial robes. They turn weapons into family," he breathed. "How do you fight a species like that?" Ruiz exhaled smoke into the dim light. "You don't. You just hope they like you enough to keep you alive." The galaxy had learned the hard way that day. Humanity did not merely fight back. Humanity improvised. Humanity survived. And humanity redefined what it meant to be a predator, a diplomat, and a parent all at once. Ash flexed his wings, lifting Emily high above the ruins. The sun glinted off molten scales, casting gold across a world that would never forget the day a little girl kissed the deadliest alien dragon, and the galaxy realized that some monsters, once liberated, make the finest allies. Humanity's message could not have been clearer: underestimate us, and your weapons will choose us over you. And somewhere deep in the Dominion fleet, an old aristocrat whispered, shaking, "You don't invade twice." On Earth, Ruiz cracked a grin. "Nope. And next time, they'll think twice before underestimating a kid and a dragon." The galaxy had a new law now. Fear humans at your own peril, because we don't just fight. We adopt. We bond. And we always remember. The patriarch roared once more, a sound that was no longer terror. It was warning. It was laughter. It was humanity incarnate. and Earth, battered but unbroken, watched its champion soar. The era of underestimating humanity was over. The age of humans, yeah, had begun.